I'm a Wicked superfan.
And I'm not.
I memorized the entire script of the musical Wicked when I was in high school.
And I like Defying Gravity. I guess. Good song.
And together, we just went to see the Wicked movie, and we're going to talk about it now.
Word. Yeah, I mean, I think despite our different backgrounds of what Wicked is, we both enjoyed it quite a bit.
What's your relationship with Wicked? Tell everybody what, like.
Well, okay, so I saw it on Broadway in like 6th grade on a school field trip for chorus. Like, I don't really remember the story at all. Our juxtaposing perspectives is very funny because I'm like mad curious now. This dude knows the entire script.
This is my cousin Ben,
I'm
by
just
the
his
way.
cousin. That's basically it.
I'm at Ben's place in Connecticut right now, and so we went to see Wicked together.
It was only part 1 too, so
yeah, now, he still doesn't know how it ends.
I still don't know how it ends.
So, what are kind of your overall impressions having seen the movie now? What did you think about it? What did you respond to? What touched you? What moved you? What did you not understand? What did you think was weird? I think your answers to these questions are going to be different than mine.
That's probably true. But the one thing I will say that was probably the reason I enjoyed it so much was how seamless the choreography and the musical numbers were just like in the plot. There's certain times where like in a musical things can feel like not apropos or just like completely out of place.
Yeah.
Where like that was
in bad musicals.
Yeah, or
that's the thing. Like
I'm not, because I'm not like a musical head too. So like a lot of the times for me that like becomes over the top.
Yeah. That's the thing that frustrates me is because people who don't know a lot about musicals think that that's a fundamental trait of musical theater when it's not.
Right, yeah.
That is bad musicals. Mm-hmm. Right.
Even like me talking with people about that as two people who don't watch musicals clearly cite like, oh, I don't like how musicals, it's like, they're always saying, why do we always got something to sing about? It's like, it fits though. Like
when you write a good musical, there's a good reason for the characters to be singing.
Yeah. And we talked briefly before recording, and you mentioned that the whole like fantasy element of it does kind of give it room for it to be more seamless.
This is one of my soapboxes that I always get on. Is I talk a lot about how in musical theater the singing is heightened expression, much like the poetry in Shakespeare is heightened expression.
Right. Yeah, like soliloquies.
And that's how the singing needs to be used. The problem with movie musicals, the thing that makes movie musicals so hard to get right, is that singing is heightened expression, but movies fundamentally are capturing something that is realistic. It visually looks realistic, and so it doesn't feel right to have this heightened expression happening.
Yeah.
But when you have a fantasy world where all the characters are basically cartoon characters and there's animals talking and there's magic.
Yeah,
bookcases.
You said earlier, like it's easier to suspend your disbelief.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. The thing you need to suspend your disbelief the least for is the singing, the breaking out.
It's pretty easy to look past that.
So that makes
when
this.
There's a goat with like glasses on.
Exactly, right? Talking to you, being like a doctor.
Yeah, there are things that happen so quickly that did have a lot of detail in it too, which kept me intrigued. I would say.
Yeah, there was so much detail in it. That's one of the things that I was really struck by, is that the world building was so detailed and it all felt true to, it was so weird, the experience, because to me, I went to see the show and based on the little bits of Oz that you get to see on stage in the show, limited by what can actually be replicated live on a stage.
Totally.
Based on that, I had imagined the whole world of Oz as a kid. The Wicked version of Oz, not the Wizard of Oz version of Oz, you know?
Yeah.
Gesundheit. And the visuals of the movie, it was so weird. They were like exactly the things that I had imagined when I was in high school.
Yeah.
Like they did such a good job of clearly these people immersed themselves in the musical and in the world of the musical, and clearly they were fans of the musical just like me. You know what I mean?
That's
it feels like
great
it was
reward.
made by fans of the musical, and I loved
That's a great reward.
That.
And I don't think they really had much, or they left a lot to be imagined besides the original Wizard of Oz movie. Like there's definitely a lot that was left to the imagination in the world building.
Yeah,
in general.
100%.
So I think that's like amazing.
And I mean, some of that comes from the
like
novel, but even that, if it's written down on a page, you have to still imagine what it would
Right.
look like on a screen, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So it was really visually impressive, I thought.
Oh well, yeah, the colors and the set design and the choreography, like interacting with the set, it was definitely captivating.
So now let's go through musical number by musical number.
Okay.
And you tell us what your response was and what you thought and what you felt when you were watching that section. And then I'll say how it compares to the original and little things that I noticed.
I think it would be cool if you also explained if there was anything that shifted the way you felt about a song. Like if seeing anything in the movie kind of like changed your perspective at all.
Yeah, I will.
Okay.
So we'll start with
the opening
number. No One Mourns the Wicked. So Glinda comes down in a bubble, and the munchkins
what's not to love about that one? Honestly,
it was so well done.
I was worried that was gonna set the bar a little too high for Ariana's vocals in general, because she hits so many crazy notes.
So she goes up to the high. If it's in the original key, which I'm pretty sure all the songs were, what?
As if I would know.
Maybe A Sentimental Man was lower for Jeff Goldblum, but that doesn't count. That's not even a real song. If it's in the original key, which I think it is, she sings the high E at the end of No One Mourns the Wicked, which is an optional note for the Glindas to sing in the show that most of them don't sing in the show, and some of them sing, but only on like special occasions, like their 100th performance or their closing performance or whatever. It's like an optional high note. It's the same high note in Phantom of the Opera.
You mentioned that they do it like so many times a week that it's like not worth it most of the time.
Yeah, well, nobody can sing that 8 times a week. Like in Phantom of the Opera, they pre-record that high E. It's the exact same note, the E6. Ariana Grande sang it, and she sounded amazing singing it at the end of that song. It was really...
It was impressive. Like,
she sounded so good.
Yeah.
And to see her walking through the crowds, because I know the show, so I know what Glinda's actually feeling in that moment.
Right, yeah.
And this is why I think Ariana Grande is such a good choice for Glinda, because she understands that experience so deeply because she's experienced it.
You mean like
as
personally?
A celebrity, personally.
Yeah.
Right? Like because she's a big celebrity, she knows exactly what the feeling is of having to perform for adoring crowds when your heart is breaking.
That's a good point.
Right?
That's actually a great point.
And she brought that to the screen. I saw that, and I understood that in a way that I have never had to deal with.
And as someone who didn't understand, like, I still haven't seen the second part, I still don't know how it ends, but like I didn't even know that they were really friends or that she cared about her at all. But I could still tell that there was something off about the way that she was behaving, or that she was, to a degree, putting up a front towards everybody, because she was not on the same frequency as them at all, as everybody rejoicing.
Literally, you could feel it. It wasn't.
And I didn't. And that just goes to show like how good her acting was in that scene, because I didn't even know.
Yeah.
I didn't realize that.
What about the section where we see Elphaba as a kid? Because in the musical, we see that sequence where Elphaba's born. Yeah. And where the mother has the affair with the mysterious stranger who gives her the green elixir. And then she has this green baby.
It's pretty foreboding when you're like born and everything, like all the metals hit the ceiling, you know?
Oh yeah. So they had, when she's born, they had a magic thing happen. Yeah. To be like, this baby has been blessed with the power of magic. In general, I found in the movie, they really played up Elphaba having this magical power, which in the musical happens like maybe twice. Like you only see her really use her magic like twice ever. In the movie, they really played up the fact that she has this special gift. And
I think they did a good job, because I think if they only did that twice, as they do in the play, then you wouldn't have gotten as great of a sense of her maturing emotionally, or the arc at least, because
because they use the moments of her doing magic to show her
progress,
her growth as a character, right? It starts out totally chaotic,
and
then it becomes very deliberate with the floating poppies when she puts them all to sleep, because that doesn't happen in the musical. In the musical,
that's true, but was that even deliberate?
They all do a dance, and then
I wouldn't even consider that deliberate.
Just physically what happens, like the benches aren't flying all over the place,
right.
It's just flowers.
You're right.
It's a different vibe.
That's a good point.
Well, and also there's something about the fact that when she's born, we see something magical happen that gives us the feeling this baby's cursed. There's something unnatural about this baby that we don't get in the musical. And so in the movie, we have this feeling that there is something otherworldly about her. There is something that makes her different. And then when she has this gift or this curse that I have inside, this little quirk I've tried to suppress or hide. These are lyrics from The Wizard and I.
Yeah.
When she has
I just saw that. I did just see it.
When she has those moments, they feel inevitable because we just are aware that this is something about her from the jump.
Right.
I think that Elphaba's magical powers is a major plot point. I think it's actually a major plot point because
absolutely,
it is the whole reason that the wizard wants her.
Right.
It's the reason that the wizard needs her. And it's the only reason that she's able to fight back.
It's almost like they couldn't reference that enough.
Yeah.
You know.
It is what the
so the
whole,
fact they only do it a few times in the play is honestly
on.
strange to me.
Yeah. Well, and this brings me to my big overarching point, which is that I'm really glad it's two parts. I'm really glad the movie's two parts, because the musical, there's so much that happens that they have to just get through it all. And every moment of the musical is plot, 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 and the musical's still 2.5 freaking hours long.
Yeah.
You know? The fact that they gave themselves time to expand it is great. And back to No One Mourns the Wicked, I loved the section where Elphaba is a young girl being brought up by her nanny, who is a talking animal. So later when the talking animals are being persecuted, Elphaba has a personal connection to that. That is not in the musical. I loved that addition. And the fact that we get to see Elphaba growing up being bullied. That was meaningful to me.
That is absolutely meaningful in the way that it strengthened the bond between her and I'm blanking on her name.
Nessarose.
No.
The sister.
You're
blanking on Glinda's name?
I am blanking on Glinda's name, yeah. And now
that's a name from The Wizard of Oz.
Well, I've never seen The Wizard of Oz.
You've never seen The Wizard of Oz? Are you blanking on the color of the brick road?
No, I'm not blanking on the color of the brick road. I'm an Elton John fan, bro. Love Elton John.
I'm an Elton John fan, bro. That brings us, though, to The Wizard and I. Which that song is like the great I Want song. And it hits so powerfully in this movie. I was
Wait, which song is
really
it
floored by that. It's the one Elphaba sings on her own, where she's running through the field of hay.
Oh, yeah.
And she's singing about what life would be like when the wizard said when she got to be with the wizard.
And looking back, that's heartbreaking. Like it doesn't hold the same connotation it does in the moment, because
isn't that heartbreaking?
It is, because I remember feeling great when I was watching that. I was like, good for her.
Yeah.
But it ends up being like disillusioned by the end,
right.
You know?
Well, and I loved the way that musical number hit, and the one moment that hit harder than it ever has is the line right at the final key change. She sings a line that goes, "I'll stand there with the wizard, feeling things I've never felt." And that hit me so differently in the movie, because we had seen that scene of her as a kid. getting bullied.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
she imagines herself standing there with the wizard, the guy who is like the de facto president of Oz.
Yeah.
The guy who runs her whole society wants to stand next to her.
The way they articulated the fact that she had never felt that way was the power of the song.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They
did that so well.
But the song tells us that without showing us, because they don't have time in this musical to show that happening, right? The musical, like I said, it's densely packed. Even though it's 2.5 hours long, every moment is plot. So they don't have time to show us her going through her whole life feeling that way.
Right.
So they tell us in that line, feeling things I've never felt. They tell us she's never felt this way. Just trust that she never felt that. But then in the movie, they have time to actually show us that. And I thought that was so powerful. And also Cynthia Erivo just sings the house down on that.
Plus, like the way that the set changes, she's walking through the whole like campus or whatever, and like I don't know, it was just a transformative. It felt like a transformative experience, not only in the lyrics or the plot, but just like the set, which was it was fantastic.
What is this feeling? Moving on to song number 4.
Okay, remind me of that one again.
What is this feeling is the one where they're like loathing, unadulterated loathing.
Yeah, that one.
And they're
like looking back on that, right.
Dearest
Problematic,
darling,
you know, like conflicting. Definitely conflicting, but not an emotion that lasted very long. But that's why like it was so gratifying when Glinda made that step after she got the wand, because not so long before were they literally just singing about loathing, and obviously like they both had to make adjustments. They both weren't expecting to live with each other, so it was almost natural that they were gonna have at odds.
I felt like that moment was the first moment in the movie where I was like, this is an artifact from the musical. As in, if this was a movie built from the ground up to be a movie and had never been a musical, I could have believed everything I had seen up to that point. Like the opening number and then the Wizard and I, all of that. I could have believed that was an original movie musical.
Right.
I don't think that if it was born in cinema, I don't think that they would have the loathing song, because that is something that can be shown, not told. And I keep coming back to this age-old adage of storytelling, which is show, don't tell. And especially in movies, you can do so much showing because you literally have the world's best showing device in a camera. And I think in a movie, you could do a lot more little scenes that are 2 lines long that just show us something about them hating each other. You know, Glinda knocks over Elphaba's tray and goes, oops, and then walks away.
Right.
That is a thing that you couldn't do on stage because you can't fly in a whole cafeteria set and have everyone set up for the cafeteria for one moment and then have it all fly out. You can't do that on stage. You can do that in the movies. And they didn't do a lot of that. They didn't do a lot of added short little scenes that can show us a lot. And I think those are a big important part of screenwriting and a big important part of cinema.
But they didn't need it. I don't think they needed to do that with
they couldn't do it in the musical on Broadway. And so they wrote this song. Right? So the song does a lot of that. But I think the song tells. The song is like, I am feeling loathing for you. You know? I hate you. They say the words, you know? And that felt, it just rang a little bit less true than everything that had come up to that point. Still true, but like 80%.
And also, like, I could see how you could infer the sentiment of that song without that song being there anyway. Like, they had already bickered enough to the point where, like, it may not have been necessary to have a number about it.
The reason it was necessary is because it was on Broadway, and we love that song. And it's a great song. And the theater kids would have rioted if it wasn't in the movie. And so that's the reason that it was there. But it kind of felt like that was the reason it was there.
Yeah, I mean, and it was fine too. It wasn't like out of place or anything. And it definitely added to the bickering or the
The next song I think technically is Something Bad, maybe, which is the song that the goat sings in the animal resistance meeting.
Oh yeah.
Which that was cool. The way that they split that up so that, because normally the whole thing just happens with Dillamond and Elphaba in the classroom after the animal should be seen and not heard chalkboard. And let me also say, when I was 13 and getting really into this musical, that moment of the animals should be seen and not heard, obviously I got it, but I didn't get it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I would even say it's kind of tough to get. You see someone be full on hate crimed. Right.
And, as a 20-something, I'm like, oh, I understand what this means.
Mm-hmm.
And it is...
Yeah, the red lettering.
Yeah.
And I think they did a good job just, like, eerieing it up.
Yeah.
Like, it felt sinister.
Yeah.
And mysterious to the point where it was just, like, very unsettling. Mm-hmm. They definitely did a good job. And also, obviously, what's the professor's name again?
Dr. Dillamond.
Oh, Dr. Dillamond. His response, being as candid as it was very cool. They added, like, someone who's so astute, seemingly, was clearly not behaving like he would normally behave. Yeah, clearly thrown off. He was not okay.
And, right? Yeah, he was seriously affected.
That's definitely one of the first inclinations that something was seriously wrong with the world as an entirety, because there was just a lot of questions, and he was kind of built up to be a distinguished person, someone who is regarded and who should be comfortable having that job and, like, going throughout his day and just behaving as though he normally would, and then just being thrown for an entire loop off of something like a sinister hate crime. Serious vibe shift when that happened. Serious vibe shift.
In the musical, they don't have the whole animal resistance meeting. I loved that addition. I think it really amped up the fascism vibes, which I think is, like, I think that's obviously what the story is an allegory for. And so I liked that. I think they didn't add a lot of new scenes. That was one of the only new scenes they added. And then the scene in the middle where, that broke up the scene in the classroom where he got hate crimed, and then the animal resistance thing. Those are two separate scenes, which in the musical are one scene. And then they added a scene in the middle that incorporated some dialogue from a different scene in the musical.
Oh, interesting.
But the whole coin levitation scene...
Oh, that was between... Right? Okay.
Between Madame Morrible and Elphaba.
Yeah, that felt pretty seamless.
I really liked those additional scenes, because those were, like, kind of the only scenes that they added. Most of the additional time, because Act 1 of the musical runs about an hour and 30 minutes... The movie runs 2 hours and 40 minutes. Yeah. But a lot of that extra time, almost all of it, was expanding on the scenes that already are there, adding sections, adding sequences, and also in the music, I noticed a lot of the time there were added bars of interlude, like a 4-bar interlude, like an instrumental interlude between verses, for example, might end up being 8 bars or 16 bars instead, so that something visual could happen that was underscored. And I thought that was brilliant. That was a really good way to adapt a musical to film. And I think that everyone who ever tries to adapt a musical to movie should take notes on that, because they took a lot of the songs and just added a few bars of instrumental music in the middle of them so that we could see visuals.
Like they
and the visuals helped so much in film.
Right. Like the songs a lot of the times were drawn out. Yeah. But it didn't feel sluggish by any means. Exactly. Like it was very dynamic.
It gave you the space to really dive into them visually, which is so important for this medium, for film. Yeah. And I loved that. I wish, though, that we had seen more additional scenes like the coin levitation one. That's my thing. Fiyero in the library. Go.
That shit was so funny. It was so funny. Our first fight. Like that line killed me. I was like, who? Oh my god. And that was like such a low point for two characters who ended up being like so redeemable. Like very shortly after that too. Yeah. Which just makes it even funnier looking back. I thought the set design was not very how do I put this? It didn't feel like it entirely matched the tone of the event.
Oh, interesting.
But I'm sure that you could come up with a roundabout way to, justify that, the fact that they weren't supposed to be there in the first place. So like it seemed a bit makeshift on purpose or like something like that. But it didn't seem like a place that you would throw a ball. And also like the lighting wasn't particularly festive by any means. So it did kind of just feel off in general. But there's no taking away from the events that happened between...
I think the Ostis Ballroom is not legal, or it's not stated to be illegal in the musical. They stated that it was illegal in the movie. I think part of the reason that added to it, and the dark vibe of the Ostis Ballroom added something, or maybe the intention was to add this.
What?
There were a bunch of animals there.
Oh,
there were
I didn't even realize
animals playing in the band and animals.
Oh, right, the band.
The band was all animals, right?
Yeah.
Like, that to me gives...
You're right, like underground, but like that's a good point. Fiyero is like, wow, she really doesn't care when she's doing like this weird dance and everyone's laughing at her. It's like, she really doesn't care what anyone thinks about her. Glinda is the one who says, who's aware and says, no, she just acts like she doesn't care. And the movie was never the same after that point either.
You know what else I think?
Like that was one of the most important scenes for me. Like probably the most moving part of the entire film was in the ballroom.
Yeah, I think so too.
And nothing even like felt serious before that, besides the fact that Elphaba had been facing adversity. Like that was basically the main part of the entire first half of the movie. And then as soon as that happened, it almost became not relevant in the second half of the movie, because it's like now she doesn't have to worry about that because Glinda is so like by her side, and it's just a powerful thing, like doing such a nice gesture for somebody who doesn't like you. Yeah, that just general idea.
When Elphaba gives Glinda the training wand.
Yeah. Or says, I'm gonna leave, I'm gonna quit if you don't give it to her.
Yeah,
or at least give her a chance.
Elphaba threatens to leave the seminar.
Right, and I think that it's not touched on for very long. It's like that just that scene where that's relevant, but that's just like super, super important.
So that's one of the moments in the musical that I always wish was fleshed out a little bit more. Like it happens in the middle of the Dancing Through Life musical number, and it is the most important moment in a lot of ways of Act 1 before Defying Gravity. Yeah. Like that pivotal moment in their friendship where they hate each other's guts, but Elphaba sees the good in Glinda and says, you know what, I'm going to do something nice for her, even though I know she hates my guts and she's been a jerk to me. Right. She's been nice to my sister, and so I'm going to do this thing out of the goodness of my heart that I know I have the power to do. She goes to Madame Morrible. She threatens to leave the seminar if Madame Morrible doesn't give Glinda the wand. That is the thing that Glinda wants more than anything.
You know how that affected me as a viewer was being lukewarm on Glinda in general. Like she doesn't have great qualities to begin with. But that event,
put the ball in her privileged life,
right? And she's stuck up, and very self-absorbed at times, and doesn't have a lot of perspective. But that specific gesture put the ball in her court to be able to make like the virtuous decision to strengthen their friendship. And then it was at that point forward where Glinda just became like the bet, or like just like a very sympathetic figure that I started to realize was definitely the good guy, the good character.
It's always when characters are put under pressure that we see who they truly are, and that's the thing. Glinda on the superficial level is like a headache. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Like cringe.
She's so privileged. She's so self-absorbed on the surface. But then we put her under pressure. We say, hey, here is this person who isn't popular, and she did something nice for you. Yeah. And she's embarrassing herself right now. Yeah. Everyone here, Bowen Yang and the other Shen and Pfanee, are like, girl, don't do this.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to embarrass yourself.
Yeah.
We know that Glinda cares more than anything about being popular.
Mm-hmm.
And still, she makes the decision to
Yeah.
embrace this person publicly.
Jeopardize her reputation.
Exactly.
Yeah.
To lessen the embarrassment of this person, lessen the pain of this person.
And that just like...
And that shows who she fundamentally is below the superficial thing. Because the superficial things come from just living a privileged life.
Yeah.
Have you ever met anyone who's been that sheltered and that privileged, who's like 19 and has never seen the world and is going to college for the first time and is like a great person? Because I haven't.
No.
Like...
I don't think
but,
so.
It does show who she is at her core, and she is at her core a person who really does care about the happiness of others.
And I think that's like staying on this. It's super important because I think it goes above the movie. Like that's like a message to the audience.
Yeah,
in a way, because it's like I have been through situations like that in real life where like someone who is not as well liked or popular is being chastised or something like that. And in that moment, if your brain just like might reference the good outcome that came from that movie, you might think,
right,
I'm gonna make this the better decision now with the insight that the movie gave me.
And this is the power of storytelling.
It really
and this
is
is why I'm so passionate. This is why I'm devoting my life to the art of storytelling, is because it can do that thing, right? Like
it can influence like just like good decisions in day-to-day life.
Right.
Yeah.
Most of the Glindas in the world are not going to help out the outcast kid. Most of the people in the world who are actually in Glinda's position are so obsessed with their status and their privilege that they won't do that. But stories can ask, what if? Stories can be like, what if those people did make this decision that is almost superhuman in its moral upstandingness. Like it is a morally good decision that most human beings with that life, in that position, with that status, most human beings would not be able to make.
Right.
Because most human beings are not that morally strong.
Or at least don't have the foresight to understand the good implications behind it.
Yeah.
Because that's the important thing is like taking somebody who feels like an outcast, who might harbor negative feelings towards society, and then completely flipping that on its head just from one action, one act of kindness. Like it could change a lot.
Well, it changes Elphaba's life.
Yeah.
Straight up.
And I'm saying even in real life.
And it changes
like
Glinda's
like
life too.
It could change somebody's life.
And it could change, exactly. Just like, and so the movie asks, what if? The story asks, what if?
Right.
And
it's a pivotal point in the plot, at least in part one.
And if you embrace those who you perceive to be lower status than you, who you perceive to be outcast for some superficial reason,
right?
If you are able to be brave enough to embrace them, it may also change your life for the better and their life for the better, like it did Elphaba's and Glinda's, and stories can teach us those lessons. I think that
as a viewer, things weren't as clear emotionally up until that point, because I wasn't really sure what direction things were headed in terms of relationships, and in terms of who to even like root for. Because by just the virtue of the story itself, it's flipping the Wizard of Oz narrative of the Wicked Witch of the West on its head. So you're supposed to be rooting for the bad guy or the bad girl in that movie. So it's already like morally ambiguous at the start.
Yeah.
So at that point, it really cements like how I feel about the movie going forward.
Yeah. Yeah, like it gives you a center of good.
Right.
You know, you're like, oh, I see that this friendship is good. And so I know who I'm cheering for.
I'm jumping like forward a little bit, but the scene where they're helping the cub drink water, it's like, what does he say? No, I I am definitely very self-absorbed and deeply shallow.
That's That's a good memory. That's a quote directly from the musical. She goes, "You could have just walked away back there. So, no matter how self-absorbed and shallow you pretend to be, excuse me, there's no pretense here. I happen to be genuinely self-absorbed and deeply shallow." That's a quote from the musical.
It's so funny, dude.
But I loved, that's another example of when the kind of understated cinematic delivery of the line from the musical really worked for the medium. Like, he just breezed right through that. I'm genuinely self-absorbed and deeply shallow.
But that was also like another extremely significant moment when she calls him out for being unhappy, which is not something that you would expect, or that even the viewer would be able to tell.
And you can tell how that moment, again, that whole scene actually was almost exactly word for word what it is in the musical, but it played so much better on film because you could see the close-up of his face when she goes, "You're unhappy," and he goes, "I am," but
slight corner of the mouth droop,
like I am unhappy, but nobody's ever seen that
or confronted that.
Like, nobody's ever actually seen me beneath my superficiality.
And he was to the viewer was mentally untouchable to that point. Like, look at this talent, like this prince full of talent, charisma, and which those two scenes, the one with Glinda dancing with and then that one were respectively the redeeming moments for those characters in the way that they responded to that kind of behavior. Yeah. Which I guess Fiyero never really has a true, because he starts shunning Glinda, which I guess he shouldn't be doing, and then like this love triangle thing begins, which is
maybe not even shunning Glinda, but just like not giving her the attention that she's craving.
Or but either way, like the character development in just those two scenes was very rewarding for the viewer, very stellar, I would say, and captivating. And at that point, I was hooked for the rest of the movie. Yeah, because I was lukewarm on it to a certain point, but then once I knew how I felt about all the main characters, I was like super invested. I was like, I need to see how this ends. Right.
And you didn't feel like you knew how you felt about Fiyero and Glinda at first because they were so superficial at first.
Right, yeah, they have certain compromising qualities.
Things that are annoying.
Yeah.
Both punchable.
Yeah.
A little bit.
Although they were framed in a fun, like, lighthearted light most of the time. So it was never like a deep hatred. It was more like, why is this character revered in this social setting where it's like you're supposed to sympathize with.
Well, they also made it so like exaggerated how revered Glinda and Fiyero were. Yeah. And how hated Elphaba was. Yeah. And that worked. Yeah. Right? The fact that the mob mentality of the Aussian students
it was super
like,
cheap.
We like these people and we're gonna applaud everything they do no matter what.
Yeah, it's like everybody besides a handful of characters, like 4 or 5 characters, were just sheep up until that point. Yeah, exactly. Like really didn't have much agency at all, is what it felt like.
Exactly. Yeah. And I think that really works for the themes of the show and now the movie.
Yeah. It enhances the allegory too.
So One Short Day is the song in the Emerald City.
Oh, okay.
They're singing in the Emerald City and then they go see the history lesson.
Yeah.
So that kind of the history lesson surprised me because that was the original Elphaba and Glinda from Broadway.
Did you not know that they were going to make a cameo? Was that not...
We were all sure that they were going to make a cameo, but we didn't know what the context was going to be or whatever.
That's cool.
We didn't know what was going to happen exactly. I thought they almost went a little too far with the cameo, to be honest. Like Adina at one point did the from the end of Defying Gravity in the middle of the history lesson, and I was like, is that really going to be in the history lesson? Like, I don't know that.
Yeah, that's true.
Like they just went a little far with it. And then they also like Adina held Cynthia Erivo and Kristen held Ariana Grande they like passed the mantle on
Yeah.
in the movie. Like that felt weird to me. The fact that like Elphaba.
It was a bit
had
of a
this
fourth
moment.
wall break.
It was a little too meta for me.
Right.
I was a little bit like, this feels like it's supposed to be service to me,
Yeah.
like the Wicked superfans.
I'm surprised that you didn't
And
enjoy that.
I
even.
find it too meta.
Right,
you know,
yeah.
like I think it was overboard. But I'm, you know, a stickler for story integrity and stuff.
Yeah. I think that's fair either way.
That's who I am.
You know, there's definitely going to be certain people who.
But
who
what I
are
liked
suckers for
about
that
it,
kind of stuff.
what I liked about that addition of that extra musical section, because that's not in the musical. That little history lesson where they talk about the wizard came to Oz, and there used to be the wise ones who could read the Grimoire, and they wrote this book of spells, and then no one was able to read it
Right.
ever again until the wizard came down from the sky and he could read it.
Yeah, that wasn't in the
That
play,
whole
is what
thing
you're
wasn't
saying.
in the musical.
And that was like what much needed context for me, honestly.
I think so too. I
Like,
think it really made me understand what the wizard's role was and who the wizard was.
Yeah.
And how he functioned in society, so that when Elphaba challenged him, we understood what was going on.
Totally
Like,
agree with that.
we
I would
understood-
have been. I was already like slightly confused.
And we understood how big of a deal it was that the wizard couldn't read the Grimoire. Because in the
Yeah.
musical, it's just like, she just goes, "Oh, you can't even read this, can you?" Sassy offhand remark. In the movie, it's the whole reason you're at your status is because you convinced everyone that you could read
Yeah, it's like-
this book, but you can't.
It's like blood pressure drop, like sweat
Yeah.
starting, like.
so
like
moving
really
forward to
intense.
that section,
Yeah.
like, how do we feel about that? The whole wizard scene with Jeff Goldblum.
It was cool as hell, man. It was cool. I think they really like for the amount that set is in the movie, which is not very long. It seemed like there was still a whole lot of attention to detail.
The fire of the
The
head.
fire and the head, and not only that, but his like little like mini model of the city, and like how he went behind the curtain and did that like number with the moon, and like
And it was all
those
about
attractions.
performance. He's tap dancing. He's going behind the moon to do shadow. He's doing like fake magic, pulling it out from the ear. I
Right.
loved that they had this constant recurring thing in that scene.
Yeah.
Of like, he's performing.
Yeah.
He's a showman, but he's not actually smart or gifted.
And I think it's really important because he doesn't get a lot of screen time. So the fact that his scene is so characteristic, it has so much characterization just in a short amount of time. It's basically a soliloquy, but it definitely just gives him all the context that we need to go forward with the plot and more.
Yeah.
With like a fun musical number and a really pleasant set and like a captivating just like environment or like room that we're even in, and it's got a lot of lore like he does as a figure.
Yeah.
It just matches his character very well, and because he didn't have a lot of screen time, that felt like very important that they nailed that.
Yeah.
Because it was a lot of characterization over a short period of time, so that by the time that they ended up going on with the plot, like it was seamless, and we already kind of didn't have to think twice about who this guy was, even though we just got introduced to him like pretty recently.
Yeah, and we don't get as much of it in the musical. So I think it's really valuable that we get that extra, like, deep dive into not that it's that deep, but it's deeper than it is in the musical. Like, the understanding of who the wizard is and the fact that he's a fake, a fraud, it is just heightened because of the history lesson, and then also because of the moon and everything you're saying. Segue into Defying Gravity. I mean, that ratchets up the stakes so that when Elphaba finds out that the wizard is a fraud, it really feels the bottom just drops out.
It really does, yeah. It's like she no longer has any semblance of a life plan.
Yeah.
It's like it all hits the fan, and it moves from I am a very powerful person who can help move society in a great direction. Like Madame, what's her name again?
Morrible.
Madame Morrible has been guiding me through. This no longer is my life plan in an instant.
Yeah.
She has to run away.
Yeah.
She has to run away like immediately after that, and it begs the question, like, where does she even go? Like, she knows what she has to do. She's convicted in that she no longer wants to help these people, but like, what does she even do from this point forward? And that's what, like, how you said the bottom really just falls out from that point. And I think that's why Defying Gravity is such a rewarding experience, because she is given this this means to escape and to formulate a plan to, not even like formulate a plan. She could hardly formulate a plan.
Yeah.
At least just like get perspective on what's going on. And the fact that that is so important just goes to show with how little or just how much she had going against her, in that she's defying gravity being a grand moment, yet all she's taking away from that is the ability to not get captured and just to run away and be able to collect her thoughts. That's her reward for defying gravity, right? At least in that moment. And it's like,
yeah, in some ways.
I'm sure, like, obviously it implies like what most people already know about how the story ends.
Yes.
But
I mean, because you don't know how the story ends still.
I guess not, no.
But the thing with Defying Gravity is it's such a powerful moment, because same thing with Glinda making that decision under pressure. What do you do when everything that you on a superficial level want
Right.
is on the line, and you're being asked to sacrifice it all for what you believe to be right, for what you believe to be morally good. And Glinda does that for Elphaba when she sacrifices her reputation to embrace Elphaba publicly. And then here we have the same thing happening. Elphaba is letting go of everything she's ever wanted. She could have the opportunity to be with the wizard, to have no one think she's strange, to have her father be proud of her, to have her sister stop acting ashamed, to have all of Oz loving her because by the wizard she's acclaimed.
Yeah.
She could have all of that.
Right.
Still. But she knows, she cares about her nanny, who's a bear in the movie. That's new, and that adds an extra dimension. She cares about Doctor Dillamond, and because she cares about the animals in her life, and she knows that this person is the one in charge, she goes, I can't. It doesn't matter what I want. It doesn't matter my selfish needs.
Yeah, and that's why whenever
this is what's right.
When the wizard and Glinda were trying to reason with her towards the end, she didn't have to think twice. Yeah. And that's part of the song, Defying Gravity, is she's trusting her instinct. Like, she knows that what she's doing is right. Which is, that's just very powerful. And it explains perfectly the events that are transpiring during that song, during the whole ending scene of the movie. Which, was one of the most impressive things about seeing this movie for the first time, was just how candidly everything aligned with the lyrics, I guess. Which goes all the way back to the first thing I even said, was that everything just felt seamless. Yeah. Nothing was really what you said, like heightened emotional expression. It was like it was completely valid. Yeah. Validated by the plot. Yeah. It was so cool. I've always I've imagined the Defying Gravity sequence in film so many times throughout my life since I was a kid. And I've always imagined the sunset in the distance. I've always imagined her like literally bursting out of the tower, like breaking the glass. Like I feel like I've always imagined it happening. That's exactly surreal, the way actually. That it happens. That's surreal. Like, it was really
incredible. They extended it, so they added some breaks in between sections where there's not breaks in the musical so that they could pack more in. They show some clips of the reactions of all of the other characters back at Shiz, back in Munchkinland, when they hear the news. They're listening to the radio, and they hear the news that there's a wicked witch on the loose.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh my god, that's Elphaba. They add some
don't
moments
trust
in
her,
that.
really villainizing her, and the wizard using her as a scapegoat.
Exactly.
Right, because fear is what unites people.
Right.
Which is his master plan, I guess.
Yeah. So that's in the musical, but these reaction shots that they break up the very last minute of Defying Gravity with these reaction shots, that's not in the musical. And I've kind of mixed feelings about them. Like, musically, I don't love losing the momentum there to cut
fair.
away, because it just kind of, that last minute and 30 seconds of Defying Gravity is written so well to just propel the energy through to the end. And when you take a big break there, you lose some of the musical momentum.
Yeah,
but
I did kind of feel that too.
Exactly.
Having not even seen the play, I did feel that. Like, I was like, is it over? Is there another chorus left? Or I still didn't even really know at that point.
But then the scenes themselves, I feel like, are really important to show.
Yeah, the sequencing was...
And then I'm glad we saw
so
them.
great.
So, give and take. And Cynthia Erivo sounds incredible.
Yeah, the acting, generally, we didn't even touch on the acting just being great, and the casting being near perfect. I don't know if you have any reserves.
I totally agree. I think Jeff Goldblum doing his Jeff Goldblum shtick is actually perfect for the Wizard, I thought. Because the Wizard is a showman,
right?
Who is the embodiment of Glinda's song, Popular, right? He's just popular.
Yeah.
Does he have brains or knowledge? Don't make me laugh. He's popular. And Jeff Goldblum, just being Jeff Goldblum, works really well for that, you know? I thought it did a really good job. And I mean, it's crazy how much of an allegory this is for, Trump's America, not to, get political on Maine. But, I
mean, you just kind of blew it up. If we're going in that direction, then we're going in that direction.
But,
But I think it's a bit more than just, Trump, though. Because this story has been around for a while.
Well, and I think it's more also World War II, and it's also there's so many. It's just fascism in general. Yeah. But
fear mongering.
Yeah, fear mongering.
Yeah.
In general.
Yeah.
But I think specifically today, this movie coming out the week or 2 weeks after Trump gets elected is crazy.
It is applicable.
Trump got elected on a platform of uniting people by giving them a really good enemy, which is a quote from the Wizard's playbook in this story. Trump is stoking all of this fear about immigrants who aren't even hurting anybody.
Right,
Just like the Wizard is stoking fear about animals who aren't hurting anybody.
Yeah.
And then at the end with Elphaba, the Wizard is able to use Elphaba as a scapegoat, villainize her. It's really could not be coming out at a better time, could not be coming out with a better cast.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot to dig in.
Could not be done better, I think, the movie.
I'm very happy that you enjoyed it, because
it is everything I could have possibly.
I didn't even really have standards. I didn't even really have a standard in general. It was just a story that I knew was popular on Broadway, and I'd seen it.
No pun intended.
No pun intended, no. But you did destroy my train of thought with that, so...
Oh, I'm sorry.
So, you know what? It's late, man.
Yeah.
How long have we been recording? An hour? You made it all this way. Why? But, like I was saying, I don't really have any, standard for the movie. So I feel like it was easier for me to like it than it would have been for you.
Yeah.
But the fact that we both liked it, coming from basically opposite perspectives, I feel like it's just a testament to that it's just good, generally just good cinema. And if you can...
They just told a good story. And that's all you have to do.
Well, even
don't pander to the fans. Hi, I'm a fan. We don't actually want to be pandered to.
Yeah.
We actually want you to tell the story that we fell in love with.
Yeah.
It's so much better. And it's so interesting, to have this conversation with you, because we have such different angles
Right.
on which we're coming at this, at which we're coming at this from.
I think that's part of the reason why we ended up getting so much out of this conversation.
Yeah.
We were able to dissect it from different points of view and, you know, bring different ideas to light.
Well, thank you so much for being a guest on my YouTube channel.
No problem, man.
Let me know if you want to see more Ben Theodorakis related content. And I'll see you in the next video. Peace out, y'all. Go see the Wicked movie.
It's good, even if you've never seen it.
Ready, wave goodbye. Bye.